What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Snapchat. Today we're going to be breaking down Redwing, the brand new card coming to the game, and it's kind of exactly what we thought about this month. Pretty lackluster, but today we've got a lot of cards to talk about. If you're all about new cards, then this is the episode for you. Alex and I are going to be breaking down the next 2 months of cards coming to the game, and there's some insanely fun concepts. And this month might have been a little boring, but the next 2 months look pretty damn exciting. And we're going to talk about that all today and more on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by the one and only Mr. Alex Kocha. And Alex, I got to say, my friend, I got a couple things to say, actually. All right. You know, hey, US, Canada, we know that. People know that. They come to the cast. They hear us, not know things from each other's countries. But what we can both agree on is when they play each other in hockey in one of the most important expedition games of all time, that the U.S. is on top, all right? You guys might have the best shooters in the world, but the U.S. is on top. Had to start there, had to bring it up. My friend, my gosh, that was probably one of the most legendary matches I've ever seen.
It was incredible. Yeah, I was watching it with my whole family. All the kids were together. 3 Tillies in 9 seconds, which is absolutely insane. You don't usually see that. In terms of the fights, I think Canada won 2-1. Miller took on a guy like 40 pounds and like 6 inches taller than him, so it wasn't really a fair fight, but he gave her. But at the end of the day, on the scoreboard, that's where the States got us. And I think you're right, man. It's like
hockey's
we
your
have
thing.
superstars that can, like, on paper should be better, but your team played better. Straight up. The defense on the States and the goaltending was absolutely astronomical.
How was your weekend? What'd you do?
It's funny because, like, obviously it was Valentine's Day, and I'm sure you did more than I did because I forgot. My wife knew, though. She knew
You forgot?
I was gonna forget. No, I didn't, forget, but, I forgot.
You forgot.
I've done this before. You know my history of forgetting important dates. Like, Cozy knows personally on a level that you guys wouldn't know. I'm a little forgetful with important dates, but my wife is pretty forgiving on that sense because I've been doing it since 2011 or so when we got married. So it's like it's not
nothing new. Yeah.
You know what I do though? What I do though is every once in a while I'll show up randomly. I'll go to Costco and I'll get like a huge thing of flowers. I'll just for no reason. It's not Mother's Day. It's no regular day, and it's just boom. And she comes home and there's flowers there. She's like, it makes up for it.
What'd you do for Valentine? What'd you get her?
Cozy, this is the problem.
Dude, like 1-800-Flowers or nothing? Not a massage, not a Kocha experience, Kocha massage mellow experience. No, nothing. Not even a coupon.
Coupon. Yeah, I did get coupons for like Harvey's in the mail, but
no,
I don't think
she doesn't want a burger from Harvey's, the burger place. Yeah, I think you guys. I think we have.
Yeah, Harvey's. Oh, yeah, you guys don't have Harvey's?
I think isn't that Carl's Jr.? Isn't it the same thing?
That's insulting, but no.
That's what they
it's
call
like basically like they make it your way, man.
No, I think you've talked about Harvey's before. Yeah, listen, Valentine's Day, I actually started my OTA video. It was on the Thursday, and I was like, it's your last day to get flowers. It's the first thing I said. I was like, don't forget it. Go out and get them. I love going to some shop on Valentine's Day and seeing like all of the lost dads and or lovers just out there trying to find the $50 flowers. I swear, inflation's the most noticeable on flowers, by the way. Like roses used to be like $10. Man, I had to get, it was like $40. And I get this stupid heart because I know my wife doesn't even want the flowers. Like she does, but she doesn't. She wants the act of the flowers. She doesn't care about the flowers themselves. So I get this like they're bent into a heart shape thing. I'm like, that's kind of cool. It's like an extra $20. I'm like, man, I could bend these myself. I'm like, okay, so I get the thing, right? And it comes with the vase. That's the most important part, right? Because I'm not, bro, when it comes to flowers, like cutting them and put them in the vase, like that's where I suck, right? But I get the vase. Dude, as I get a little balloon, right? I'm trying to go above and beyond a little bit. So I'm setting up the balloon in the kitchen. This is at night, by the way, because there's nothing I love more than Thursday goes around, right? She wakes up and then the stuff's there. Because it's the idea of like, when the hell did he go? How did he go, right? Brother, it's like 1 a.m. I just finished editing some video and I'm putting the heart thing together. And as I tie and get the balloon ready, my elbow hits the vase with the flower off of my kitchen island. And I watched this beautiful, beautiful art go into 10 million pieces, right? So not only did I wake my son up, okay, I have 10 billion pieces of glass on the floor at this point, right? No shoes on. Don't know what to do. It's pitch dark. Almost at this point, too, because have you broken glass, right? You got kids. I don't know about you, but I panic. I'm like, there's going to be one. There's going to be one that I forgot, and I'm over at the hospital. Long story short, we didn't have another vase. I kind of just popped it in a cup. It didn't have the same She liked it more because of the story, but it was a bit. It was sad. I was sad, Alex, and I stepped on some
I gotta
glass.
make sure my wife does not listen to this intro because you're like lamenting over how hard you worked for Valentine's Day, whereas my answer was literally like, bro, I don't know, I forgot.
I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna make sure she does. Anyway, happy Valentine's Day for all you guys that celebrated out there. We've got ourselves a pretty good video to talk about today. We've got a lot of new cards. We've got an OTA, which we're not gonna actually break down all too much. We'll probably talk about Adam Warlock. I think that'll be the main one to break down. That'll be a fun one to break down. We know what we're talking about over here, Alex. What are we talking about on your side of the Snapchat?
Cozy, on my side of the Snapchat, we're going to be talking about Thunderbolt Ross and whether or not he's good for your decks. Spoiler alert, he might not necessarily be, but we'll talk about him in full review. We'll also be talking about card mastery and whether or not it's sus. And then finally, as always, our Snapchat mailbag.
All right, Alex, lots of cards to talk about today. I'm actually pretty excited because as I thought this month was when we started our in review series, I just had a feeling this month was pretty lackluster. And listen, bud, the reviews are in early on the new Captain America. Not looking good. I haven't seen it. I can't judge on it. Maybe you enjoyed it, people, but they're not looking good so far. And it's kind of like this month's in card. And I want to be able to talk about the new cards coming out a lot, but between Thaddeus and Redwing here, it's a pretty tough back-to-back week we've got it. Now, it did get updated, and the OTA is now a 3-4, people, so do remember that. It's a 3-4. And the first time this card moves, add a card from your hand to the old location is what Redwing is going to do. And, you know, I think there are cards that we talk about where you got to test it. Maybe we can see if it works. Maybe see if it doesn't. You know, I think to me, Alex, it's fairly obvious just why I think this card's not going to hit. And it's a couple of reasons, and I'm not sure about you. I'm giving it a very low star, maybe a 2. Even that, I think, is probably nice. Mainly due to the fact of we've seen this where if cards cannot move on their own or they need some kind of vessel, usually that's just such a slowdown. It's just not worth it, especially with how outside of Madam Web, a lot of cards, you know, you got to play it in a certain order. And then that means you have to get those cards at the right time. And then on top of that, you have to have a card that you want in your hand that's going to play down. And so you've got that wonkiness. So that's a big thing. But also even between the stat line and the nicheness of the card has me right away. You know, you asked me to start this episode with the star rating, so I'm doing that for you. I'm just not feeling Redwing as a card. This is definitely a save month for me.
I would definitely agree with that. There's a couple things. First of all, when they pre-buff a card, that tells you everything you need to know. At 3-3, this card was probably absolute unmitigated filth, like impossible to play.
Yeah.
They gave it 3-4. And you know what? The problem is that you're right. It doesn't move on its own. So it doesn't have like the Rocket and Groot automatic kind of like, hey, I can move when I want. You don't have that agency with it. It requires a second piece. And that second piece, you're not always guaranteed to draw into. And like, okay, so right off the top, it's like, okay, well, you can Heimdall it. Well, yeah, sure. But then like, how do you make sure you get Heimdall? Are you actually going to cope and put Thunderbolt Ross in a deck so that you can maybe draw into Heimdall so you can do a Redwing on curve and all this stuff? And then like, it just doesn't make much sense. I think you're absolutely right. My heart of hearts says this is probably a 2-star card. I could see it in like 1, maybe 2 decks, perhaps touching that 3-star range, and then it just cuts and that deck never sees play ever again. Like, it's not going to do enough to those archetypes where it can be played, where I think it'll be viable. Although the ability could potentially be strong, it lacks agency on so many fronts, right? As you said, you got to have the card in hand that you want to pull. You got to pull that card, and you have to move it itself, right? So there's a couple lines that I'm interested in, but overall I am tentative. So I'd go like a 2, and I can see a maximum 3-star.
I can't see a 3. I'll be honest, because how are you supposed to get in your hand something that you want to have played down? We've talked about Dracula Dump. I think that's the one place that like maybe you can get this to work out because you have a lot of cheap ones that can move, and there maybe. But is it going to take a slot of something else, or can the deck play the same without it? Probably. Like, I even was like going as far as like, ooh, Phoenix Force. Okay, you destroy the Redwing. Then you have a card that can move itself, so then you can kind of time it and maybe get some big stuff in your hand. It's just so much that you're trying to do when you have, I don't know, a Surtur deck, even though it got nerfed, but you got that which just plays big power, and big power is going to win, and it doesn't virtually have a counter. Like, or Doom, 2099, you can just play. You don't have to think as hard to get something that is pretty much the exact same. And so that's what worries me about it. I think it really boils down, and we've seen this time after time after time, that move is just, it's on that fine line of, if you make it every time it moves, it plays a card, it's too good. If you can't have it move itself because probably it's too good because Craven synergy and blah, blah. Move has seen just so much adversity against it as an archetype in this game. And if it ever does have that, kind of chance to shine a little bit in a deck, then they kind of address it pretty quickly. That to me is usually the key indicator of a card that's not great. And I think Redwing is probably that.
Oh, you're right. And I had some thoughts about as you mentioned, right? The fact that it can only really do its effect once. And that's probably reserved because the effect is somewhat powerful. And if you're already able to do it over and over again, you would be able to just pull down your hand so rapidly. But you're also taking up a lot of space doing that. So I don't know how broken it is. It's probably broken, honestly. It got me thinking about Spider-Man 2099, which is, obviously a card that would benefit from being able to proc its effect twice, much like Redwing would benefit from being able to proc its effect twice. However, I was thinking, okay, what if you have something like a Spider-Man 2099 down and you have Redwing down and you Heimdall? So now you're getting 2 procs off the Heimdall play. You're getting the Redwing pulling, you're getting a destruction from the Spider-Man 2099. Individually, they might not be impressive, but together that might actually be a relatively powerful turn 6 play, especially considering that Heimdall is now a 10 power card. So it's like, that's kind of what got me thinking a little bit. Now, I actually don't even think that's probably the best line. Like, I don't even believe that Redwing is a move card because there's going to be few cards that want to be pulled down in a move deck. Like, okay, yeah, that works, but yeah, okay, Spider-Man 2099 is destroying something, but what's Redwing pulling? Like in that kind of move list, you know what I mean? Is it pulling an Infinite? Do you have an Infinite in that deck for some reason? So it's like, that's where it kind of gets a little suspect. So I absolutely agree. Yeah, I don't know. I do have a couple lines, if I could pitch to you, that might be worth it.
I'll say the only one that I liked was outside of, again, Dracula Jump, but the only one I like is, and again, the deck build, it's like, okay, you have to kind of change your mind from what she usually is played in. But just the 2-card combo of Madam Web and then Redwing, that alone, okay, because then you've got the agency to kind of move that whenever you want to, right? And then you can maybe do something there. And you can put that into most decks, but what deck does that look like? That's the thing.
So I thought about this, and I think you're right, because you can do a Madam Web on curve on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you can Redwing. Turn 4 you could Frigga, right? Bring a Redwing back, move the first Redwing. Turn 5, play another Redwing into Madam Web, right? Turn 6, move that Redwing again. So now you're dropping 2 cards down, but your entire deck is revolving around pulling cards out of your hand.
I was going to say, what's in your hand to pull down? At that point, exactly, it's like, yeah, what are you trying to pull down? I don't even know. Like, I get it. If they made it every time it moves, it pulls a card, might be too strong, but then they could almost stat it correctly to be around that. So if they made it a 4 cost, that happens so late in the game, so then it's not that big of a deal if they could do it every turn. I don't know. Like, I feel like at that point, you could maybe do some kind of cool stuff of yanking stuff all over. It's still very card dependent. Maybe they tried that. It just doesn't work. I think it was supposed to be bounced the first time. It was, yeah. Listen, putting this next to Thunderbolt Ross might be the 2 worst cards to come back week over week. It is probably my review.
Yeah, it's not good, but I also think that they're intended to be played together because Thunderbolt Ross draws into big cards that Redwing can pull. And I think that's kind of where their head was at, that the consecutive weeks are supposed to build off each other to some degree, whereas prior, you had Redwing synergizing with Joaquin Torres Falcon, right? Because it had the bounce and buff mechanic. So I think they were trying to make Redwing a card that was supposed to synergize with the other token cards or the other Spotlight Cash cards, and then they kept changing the design of it. But yeah, no, I agree. I think these are weak weeks for sure, unfortunately.
Well, we're going to move because we have so many cards to talk about. Let's move on from Redwing. I think both of us would say that we're probably not crazy about the card. Do you have another line? Do you have one more line you want to throw out there?
I mean, the only one that I think maybe I would try, and I might try on the opening day, is an Electro Ramp with Heimdall. The reason why is because I think Electro Ramp is interesting from a standpoint of Redwing could be a backup play is if you don't get your ramp cards.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of cool, right? So you have Heimdall in there, and then you can have a couple other big hitters. And what's interesting is if you don't pull the Electro, you can play the Redwing down, and your hand is going to be designed to have chonks in it, right? Because you're playing Electro. And I'm not quite 100% sure, am I doing the Corvus line like we used to? Remember the Corvus ramp stuff? That's another 3 drops. So it's you're either getting Electro, you're getting Redwing, or you're getting Corvus. and you're going to be able to throw down chunks. You're going to be able to get them out there. The only challenge with Corvus, I think, would be if you get rid of Heimdall, the Redwing is useless, so that probably can't ultimately be in the deck. But I've been trying to pen and paper around that a little bit. I thought it would be an interesting take. I don't think it's going to be like, whoa, look at this 60% win rate deck that got cooked. It's not going to hit that, but I think it might work maybe. Back
in the day with like the old Doc Ock, Heimdall, that actually could have been a kind of a cool line. You get like Doc Ock, you pull all the cards on one lane, Red Wings on the other lane. When you move them over, they're stuck in that lane. Now you have Doc Ock, you have Red Wing in the other one. Like that could have been a cool line, you know, but we don't have a lot of stuff that can kind of work off the Heimdall these days. I mean, a couple things, not like we don't have anything, but that at least seems like it'll be playable for content. That seems like at least the stream's going to be
for content at least. Yeah.
Stream's entertaining. OTA came, a lot of just power shifts for sure. But hey, man, listen, thrilled, absolutely thrilled to see Adam Warlock finally get the love. And it took so long to get this design. It took like a year to get this design right, and it was so simplistic yet so good. Like I'm glad at least it brought together, you know, a design that felt better for Adam Warlock, and it was just missing like a line of text, which is so funny to think about, right? What do you think about new Warlock here?
I think it was funny that at the end of the day, as you said, you come full circle with basically the original text, with just some very minor but significant modifications to the otherwise +1. I think that this card still would have sucked originally, like in the opening days of beta and release, it still would have been a bad card. But right now, we have Rocket and Groot, which feasts with this card, right? You also consider the fact that with Sam Wilson, we have an initiative granting card on turn 1, right? So like Adam Warlock loves that. Like we have tools today that we didn't have before to make this card legitimately powerful. Like even just Rocket and Groot, man, is nuts.
Well, and just the fact that what I like about it too is that he just applies pressure. So like he's gaining that 1 each time, you know, if you're not drawing that card. And so it's like making that location a little bit harder. So, like, at the very least, I remember we used to say, like, even if Adam got you 1 card, he's like, it was worth that play. And now it's like, okay, if he can get you that card and he's like a 2/3, it's like, all right, you know, if you would have 2/3 draw a card, that's a great card, right? That's a good card to have. So I think that this is actually an Adam that we can play. Feels great around that. Really happy that they did that. And overall, you know, pretty big win. And then the OT addressed a lot of other big hitters that needed to come down. I think that was good, too. I think, you know, obviously Doom 2099, some of those other cards were cooking a bit too much. Those felt way more appropriate than some of the other ones we've had in the past, like Dagger, whatever, coming down. It's like, well, that was such a small line. I just can't believe out of every card in this entire freaking game that Adam Warlock was the worst card of the game some weeks. That cracks me up.
Something's got to be the worst, but it doesn't surprise me that Warlock was that. Something else worth mentioning about the OTA too is the buff of a bunch of classics, right? Seeing Sarah get a point, Sunspot get a point. That was nice to see. I was very happy to see a bunch of classics get buffed, and it's going to make the next "These cards suck" thumbnail that we're running up on in the next couple of weeks for the Snapchat. It's one of our go-to topics, Cozy. What are we even going to put on the thumbnail now? They're buffing all the cards.
Mr. Fantastic, Warlock, I know. And Lizard, they were like, all right, buff it. Lizard, they were like Warlock good, Sarah good. Hey, Lizard, leave him. We got to keep him in his. We got to wait another 6 months to get him good. Well, listen, bud, we've got 2 upcoming seasons. This season, guys, might have been a bit of a dud. But we have the next season, the Prehistoric Avengers, which I think might be one of the best new card seasons that we've had in a long time. There were a lot of cool cards in this season, and then What If has a lot of interesting cards too. Like, listen, pretty stale February, really exciting March and what would be April. So we're going to kick that off, talk about it. These are subject to change. I would say the ones coming in March already got their second changes, so they probably feel a little bit more locked in. The April ones definitely, I think, are more ideas at this time. But always cool to see what they're cooking, what you might want to save up for. And I think by then, or by the time these roll around, we're A, going to get series drops, so keep that in mind. But B, we're going to get, hopefully, new card monetization, right? So, or new card... We're going to get ways to get new cards, hopefully by around one of these seasons, would be my hope, at least by April. We'll have to see. Now, Alex did a video on these. This is the first time I'm looking at these cards. So you're pretty much new on looking at them outside of a couple ideas, correct?
Yeah. I just did a general overview of them, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with the Season Pass card. And I'm actually pumped that out of all the cards that we have to talk about today, I was like kind of looking at which ones were going to be the Season Pass card. And I'm pumped that Agamotto was the one that they chose as the Season Pass card. So, Agamotto, guys, I have some of these built in with the text on screen. Some of them I'm just going to have to read. this guy's got way too many cards, so we're going to just read him out here. He's a 5'10", so stat line out the bat. I think we're all pretty happy with that. At the start of the game, he's going to shuffle 4 Ancient Arcana into your deck. So you can think of it as spells, right? He's going to put 4 spells into your deck. Now, they're not going to start in your hand, kind of like Thanos, so it's going to make your deck pretty thick, but he's got a lot of these spells. So first off, 5'10", Alex, obviously not bad. But let's go and talk about all the spells. And there's some wild ones, man. There's definitely some wild ones here. We'll go and start with temporal manipulation, guys. Now, we have a brand new keyword on these spells, and it was only a matter of time till we got this new keyword to come to the game, and it's banish. So banish, from what Glenn has told us, is not destroyed. It's not discarded. There is no way to get this back. Once it's banished, it is out of play. And it'll be coming with this season, but also he said possibly on some older cards, which that seems super interesting, because I was like, what older cards would you banish? That one to me, they must have to rework some stuff to make a card banishable, because banish is a big penalty, obviously. There's no way to, to get it back, which I actually like. I like something with extreme power potential, and it's kind of a one-time use, right? These spells are designed just as that. They have no power and they cost different amounts. So temporal manipulation is a 1-cost 0-power card. On reveal, you're going to give Agamotto +3 power. Put him into your hand if he's not in play. So right out of the way, you can kind of get him into your hand. I think that's great. You can also give him the +3 power. For 1 cost, not a bad spell, Alex, if I say so myself. I'm going to kind of read through these and then we can talk about some of them. The next one is the Winds of Watum. And this whole season's cool. I mean, I know a lot of these from just Marvel. And so to see some of these powerful either gods or spells mentioned, Winds of Watum is a 2/0. On reveal, afflict an enemy card here with -5 power, and then you move it to the right. And then obviously all these have after it, banish it. So let's talk about those two at first, buddy. Banishing and those 2 spells to start, man. Pretty good, strong start, yeah?
No, it absolutely is. Now, I have a quick question. I don't know if you have the answer to this, because I didn't see Glenn's. He must have answered some questions that you saw and I didn't, in like a Q&A or something. Now, in my head, banish, I agree. It's exactly what you explained. Does it also mean that the card does not occupy space on the board? Like, is it like an instant in Magic, or like kind of like a spell that just gets played and then it disappears? Like, it does not occupy space on the board.
Yeah, there's no space on the board and it's gone, right? So it's like there's no way to get said card back. There won't be a resurrect from Hela, nothing like that. So yes, and it doesn't apply the space. And you're going to see that the most in one of the cards mentioned here in a second. But now temporal manipulation, cool for the hand, getting him to the hand. I thought this one was really interesting because it's essentially a 2/5 with the power to move a card to the right too. Really cool disruption. Listen, card space is getting so hard to manage in this game, and that's why I like these banish cards, because it's allowing you now to be using your energy in creative ways without having to occupy space all the time.
Yeah, no, it is. It actually is pretty cool disruption. Like, in my head was like Galactus. Like, can you imagine like clogging a location, or, throwing this over or something like that, and then being able to Galactus that location, or removing a card from a location you can then Galactus yourself. It opens up 2 avenues for Galactus, which I think is pretty interesting. But no, it definitely is fascinating from a disruption standpoint. And being able to draw Agamotto with the first spell is actually crazy. Like, that's like a real +3+ guaranteed draw of the card that is already a 5/10. That's pretty awesome.
If I were to guess anything going down, it could be he goes down from 5/10. That seems a little strong. Keep in mind, though, he's adding these cards to your deck, so he's really he's not thinning your deck. He's thickening that bad boy up, right? Like, he's making your other cards. Yes, but these cards are almost worth drawing at that point, right? And so, Bolts of Balthok,
I'm glad you read it before
I wanted to make you read it. Yeah, I'm going to get haste for that one. But this is now a 3 cost, so it goes up a little bit. You're going to banish it, but this is where things get interesting. On reveal, next turn, you get +4 energy. I mean, my God, at a 3,
huge.
That's a huge spell, man. That is an awesome, huge spell. And what's cool is all of these are good. Like, I love that there's not like a move a card to the right, kind of like Nico. Like, it's like, man, these are added into your hand, but you add these with some other just generic good cards, and we're going to have ourselves a pretty good deck, to mess around with, right? And then let me read the other one, and we'll review these 2. And then last but not least, and this is where it makes sense that they're not going occupy space in any capacity. We've got the images of Icon, and this is a 4-cost on reveal. Transform your other cards here into copies of the highest powered one. So this will be banished, and the way I read this won't be transformed, right? So if you have 3 cards, you play this, they're going to all change into your highest powered card, and then this is going to be gone. So there's going to just be 3 of whatever that might be. It's a 4 cost, but that's some really cool. I mean, you can attack any lane with pretty big potential here. I think it's not the best one in the bunch, but I think it's very unique in what it can do.
Yeah, I had this thought of like filling mid or whatever with a whole bunch of stuff, and then like ramping out a Doctor Doom with Wave, and then playing this, and then just dooming like the whole board. As everything transforms, right? Just Doom bots all over the place. It's kind of silly, but I think it's funny.
So what I want to see, I'm going to go to Morph, become a copy. Transform, we haven't seen a lot. I think we have a couple times. Does Transform let them activate their ability?
What's his name? No, Transforming. That was added for Loki, yes. To prevent the Quinjet synergy, right?
So does Transform then... Does it allow you to copy? So if they all become an arrow, do they all get their on reveals? You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Oh, I'm not sure, man. There's the words and like the verbiage of cards. Sometimes like you almost got to just see, because sometimes they're even inconsistent with each other, right? We've had that in the past too, right?
Well, what I'll say is this guy for a season pass card seems like a must, like a must add season. But this guy seems like a 5-star. This is we need to get some money, but also the new Nico. I mean, this is a very fascinating card with limitless potential. And listen, bro, you combine him with something like maybe King Eitri. You combine him with something like potentially even freaking Mr. Negative, Jane Foster, because they're all zeros. Like I just talked about having like a plug and play deck. I mean, a Mr. Negative Agamotto deck where you could like get all these cards to your head. It seems like obviously King Eitri is a bit cope, but it feels like this is a card that does fit with just about anything.
I don't think King Ichi's cope at all. I think you're actually onto something, because he's an activate, and you could pull exactly what you need when you want it. Like stuff I think that's pretty cool. Now, obviously, King Ichi's not going to pull all of them. It's going to pull one of them, right? And so, like, you don't know what you're going to get. And some of the effects might not necessarily be useful. Like if Agamotto's already in your hand and you pull the temporal one, yeah, you're giving him +3, but you're not getting him from the hand. You're not kind of thinning your deck, as they say. But no, definitely speaking from a season pass perspective, this is probably going to be close to a must buy, because there's going to be I don't have Agamotto, who do I put instead? Like just you don't play that deck anymore.
Next up is Isan, a 6/9, kind of looks like Arisham's cousin over here. Yep, very nice. After each turn, put a card from your hand that didn't start in your deck here. And this is pretty interesting. I know there was a prior version of him that was better. We're going to talk about this version here. This is what it looks like he's going to be here. Other than just the nice stat line there at 6/9. This seems okay. I think he comes out the same week as Agamotto, so I'm not going to be playing him much. But I don't know. I think there's some cool ways to get some synergy here between Wiccan and Wave and Luna Snow and Jubilee. Like, I don't know, in an Airship deck? Like, he seems more fun than he seems like really good.
His original design, which I know you said you didn't want to talk about, had the legendary tag, which was so fascinating, which I assumed was you can only have one of in a deck. I think we talked about it in the past. It was so much more interesting than this. It's so sad. Cozy, it's so sad. But I think one of the reasons why they had to change it was because I think the old version, I bet you there was like a mathematical best version of that deck, because it was just pure math. Like, oh, just different powers. Everything gets +2. Here's the deck. Carbon copy it. Get dubs, right? But like, I don't know, man. I don't think this is not nearly as good as the other one was. That's for sure. It's not nearly as good. I think it's probably a cope card.
Probably a cope card. I mean, you have... You could potentially get him with Agamotto, right? You could have all the spells like whipping out and go into his thing. Yeah, he definitely, out of all the cards we're going to talk about today, this is probably one of the least interesting to me, mainly because his stat line. Like you gotta, it's almost like Redwing. You have to find a way to get it out there. Yeah. You got to find a way to get it out there. Then you have to hope there's stuff in your hand for him to even pull. If he was able to pull just cards from your hand that weren't, because they weren't allowed to start there or whatever. It didn't start in your deck. If it was just anything in your hand that he would pull down, a little more interesting to cheat him out. But it's because there's so much going on at play that I think he's just like an Airsham fun card.
Yeah, it's tricky. I'm sure there's going to be ultimately, like as we get closer to like actually deck building with him, there might be a couple places where he might be able to perform, but generally speaking, he's a shadow of his former self. And that's kind of where like looking at the data mines can be soul crushing, because perhaps when they're experimenting with stuff, they experiment on the higher end of what the power levels should be of cards. Like there's maybe a good chance that the original Isan should not have come out because it was absolutely broken. Yeah. And as fun as it would have been the first 2 days, everyone would have been miserable for the next 3 weeks begging for a nerf, right? And so I guess that's the other side of it.
So Agamotto's a 5 to me. Would you say he's a 5 to you?
Yeah, I think Agamotto's going to be a must-get. Yeah.
And Isan here, what are you giving him?
Oh, man, it's like a 3 maybe.
I see. I don't even know if I'd give him a 3. I think he's going to be like a 2. I think he's a gimmick card.
Yeah, he's probably, you know what? I don't know. I'm like a very like unhappy 3. Like, I need more time. Okay. I like this guy though, man. I think he's cool. Sick.
This guy's cool, guys. Star Brand, 3 cost, 10 power. You heard that right. A 3/10. How is that possible? Well, Alex, ongoing, your opponent has +3 power at each other location. So it's like, wow. That's bad. It's a 3/1 at that point, right? But you get a lot of power at one location. Well, guys, this one is quite simple, quite easy. You're looking to do 2 lines with it, maybe 3, but Sauron needs the love. This is a Sauron card. Love it through and through to just get back to what Sauron was. Big power, get rid of the ongoing, make it happen. But also Enchantress. You got, Enchantress that you can play right after him, maybe just to get rid of that and have raw 16 power, whatever, right? Just boom, power on the lane. I like that play. I think Star Brand is on brand for Snap, and I like it.
Oh, buddy, that was beautiful. My gosh, Cozy, did you write? Are you reading a teleprompter?
I did. Yeah.
Is that like some ChatGPT scripting right there? That was just so perfect. Oh, my gosh. Me. Yeah, buddy, that was beautiful. But I will tell you, I love this card. Like, this might be one of the my favorite ones of the month. The reason why is because I loved Sauron. I always love those archetypes. I love Zero. I remember thinking back, dude, like in the 3rd episode of the Snapchat, you talking about like how much you loved Zero, and then that card and that archetype saw nothing. It was completely forgotten about. In fact, there's a chance that there's people listening right now that don't even know what Zero is. I bet you there are new players who cannot think of what Zero even does. And it's crazy because like this card I think is great. The only concern I have is like I don't want the Sauron decks to lean so far into like if I don't draw Sauron I die, like, you know what I mean, and like that's kind of the challenge. So I like the call out for the Enchantress because that's a nice backup play to Starbrand or to
Lizard
Typhoid Mary or Lizard. Yeah,
and that's like you start to have things kind of. I miss that deck. You're right, like I really do. I miss that deck, and not to mention Scar. Insert this is a very powerful card for that if you can make it work within there too. And having a tech piece, like I love the idea of the tech piece like Enchantress to kind of live in that deck as like an A for Starbrand and also a tech card, right? You get like a Killmonger out of it that we want more of. I want more bad ongoings. I think it's just such a cool concept. They don't mess around with enough. Starbrand, definitely cool after kind of a weak Isan week. We got Agamotto followed by him. Now, next one we have is, first of all, by the way, star rating on Starbrand.
I'm like almost 5, just on pure excitement. Like I could probably see him landing closer to like a 4. Like
I think he's like
realistic.
A 4.
I think he's good though.
Niche,
he's a 4. I'm excited 5, but he's really probably a 4.
Okay, so we have Fire Hair next. Rip Firestar. Fire Hair is a 2/3. Now this one's interesting. When one of your cards is destroyed, this uses that card's on reveal. And Alex, every now and then we get a really cool card that can create combos and create really fun things as just like a set piece. We saw it in the past with like a Nihilus and Hood, right? And Sentry. Now we've got Firehair, who is a destroyed card, but also looks to just kind of work with something, really any destroying card, but Misery and Venom, I think is, those are, to me, those are awesome. Just plug and play lines. What do you think about Firehair?
I think Mill's going to feast with Firehair. Like, I think that the Mill Misery lines are going to go absolutely insane. The only thing that I think about with Firehair is I think it's going to set up very complex, like, macro situations where, like, Firehair has to be positioned to take advantage of its effect while also you're destroying something in another lane or whatever. Like, I think that, like, it's going to be challenging to position effectively. But I think it's a really cool card. I like the design. It's neat. But like, I need more time to really think about its inherent synergies, but I think it's cool, especially from a macro perspective, like how you set up your board to best take advantage of the effect.
Yeah, what I'm thinking of is Venom, right? So I'm looking at some of these high power on reveals, like what do some of these big boys do? And then if you were to eat that and then have that go into another lane, you're getting, I mean, obviously Misery is the biggest bang for buck to get, the smaller guys kind of all triggering at once, doing a lot. But like, what can Venom eat to then have some really good things pop off? Even something like Brood, I don't know, whatever, right? Like, could just eat it, then it goes over there, and you make the space smaller. But I do think in all that this that Fire Hair is pretty interesting. Star rating's tough. I think I would lean kind of high. I think there's going to be more synergy than not.
I'm like hesitant to give a star rating because I think I need more time to like start pen and papering some ideas for her. But I would probably venture to say like a high 3, low 4 range.
Okay, now
that's my estimation.
People, if you listen to the last Snapchat, I was talking to Alex, or a couple Snapchats ago, I was talking to Alex about Moon Knight and how I really wish you watched the series. And I'm sure he has not yet, but a character I really liked on Moon Knight from the introduction of him to also just throughout the series was Khonshu. And Khonshu, man, you just grow to love Khonshu and who he is as the Egyptian god. They're bringing him to Marvel Snap, and it's not just as this 612. I'm going to kind of list what he does here. This is by far my favorite card of this month, I think, by a long shot. Not only because of Khonshu, but in general. So Khonshu, guys, is going to start as a 6/5. He has 2 other forms, a 6/7 and a 6/12. They all do inherently the same thing, but with a major difference. So first of all, when you discard Khonshu is when you're going to be able to upgrade his power, right? So he starts as a 6/5. Then the 6/7, 6/12. But when you play him down, he's going to resurrect one of your other cards and then set that card's power to the form that he's in. So 5, 7, or 12. So at the weakest form, he is inherently, you're going to have other things in factor here, but a 6/10. But then you go into 14 to 12, which is crazy, right? So to me, we have this new kind of apocalypse, number one, like this new kind of build-up card that you can get better and better. Love this mechanic, and I hope they continue to work with this in discard. But man, oh man, do we have some cards we can abuse, even at 5, 7, and definitely 12 power. I'm all in on Khonshu, buddy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I like how, I hope that it'll actually work with the nameplate, the way it's kind of illustrated in the data mines, where the moon becomes more full. Like it starts as a new moon when he's a 6/5, and then you discard him once, he becomes like a, kind of like I think it's a waning or a waxing moon crescent. And then he turns into the full moon at full power. Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's really neat. I also like the skill cap consideration of like, only discard him twice, because if you discard him the third time, then poof, right? He's gone because he only comes back on those first 2 forms, right? Yeah. But the power output's insane. Like, can you imagine bringing back like an Iron Man? So you play a 6/12 in one location and bring back a 6/12 Iron Man. Like, it's just crazy, honestly.
And that's a 24 power play. And
yeah.
But as we know, I think what has me so excited is we finally have another card. Discard is one of the most perfect, well put together archetypes because it flows and ramps so well. And so you have this Morbius that's just going to the moon with every action you take, right? You have this Black Knight that we can maybe play and get some really cool value out of Black Knight to get the Ebony Blade, and then Khonshu. I love that Hela is not now just Hela, and we have this kind of mini form of Hela. We had it in Ghost Rider a little bit, but the fact that this synergizes perfectly with Moon Knight, so you're discarding your opponent's hand, you're getting Khonshu built up. This, to me, is by far the card that I'm most excited for. And regardless of how good it's going to be, I'm going to get it, but I also think it's going to be very good.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be really good. It's going to need a lot of, like, discard activators. Like, you need to discard something to bring back. You need to discard Khonshu. So, like, it's going to need a very deliberate, well-designed, tight deck. However, I'm super excited for it as well. I think it's going to be a new archetype-defining card for discard. Like, we have these archetypes within discard, right? We have the APOC. We have the Bullseye. We have the Black Knight. Do you guys remember Black Knight? He still exists, kind of. And then now you're going to have Khonshu as well. And so you're going to have these multiple, and then of course Hela. So you have like 5 versions of one archetype that you can lean into. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting card.
And it makes Silver Samurai a hell of a lot better too. I think you can get rid of that Iron Man now, get rid of their card. Like, it makes that better. He comes with, I don't care about the spotlights as much, but he does come with Corvus and Scorn. So like, just like, hey, welcome to discard, week. Love that. It's the last card that is. Yeah, it's gonna be the last card that comes out for the Ancient Avengers, or whatever they're calling this, Prehistoric Avengers. Kind of a weird name. A lot of gods here and just powerful beings is maybe a better name here, but very, very cool card nonetheless. Now, lastly, this is not in the spotlight, so this is probably a game mode card if we had to guess, but we have to talk about it. The first Ghost Rider. Lizard is in stitches. A 2/6. How does that work? Well, he's got himself an on reveal that he will discard the lowest power card from your hand and then that card's power will be removed from this one. And so people looked at this card and they're like, man, this looks really bad because there's so many specific lines that you're going to have to, make sure that you play. And, if you just look at it as a whole, a little bit awkward. But here's the thing, Alex. You got a new discard card at 2. Big win. Just start there. Big win. New discard. Only at 2 costs. So you got that action. But I think this Khonshu is up there, but this is my next favorite card, especially in tandem with Khonshu. Playing this with Khonshu, I think is going to be very interesting because you can avoid Khonshu and you can make this guy work. Alex, I know you thought about this. You mentioned Iron Man with Khonshu, right? Iron Man going up to 12 power. Well, first of all, you have Iron Man 0 power, so nothing's going to happen there. You just get a 2, you get a 2/6. Silver Samurai actually is dead after we just said he might be alive. So you get that and you get Iron Man gone. But obviously, we can all talk about what everybody's thinking about. Is Selene and the Goblins back? Are they back?
I guess it depends on how they do math in Marvel Snapland. Because when you are taking away a -8, that sounds to me like you're adding 8 to Ghost Rider. But then again, I'm not a math teacher. I'll leave it to the mathematicians in the comments to argue. But to me, it sounds like if you get rid of a Ghost Rider, you're adding 8 power to the first Ghost Rider. And hear this line. Talking about lines, right? Zabu turn 1, Ghost Rider turn 2, get rid of Hobgoblin. Okay, this guy becomes a 214 or whatever. And then what you do is with your now pumped original Ghost Rider, you play Ghost Rider, send the Hobgoblin back over. Boom! Talk about that snap condition, baby.
I mean, even at the simplest, first of all, that was great. I do love that. But even in a simple terms, without having perfect card draw, I think just in general, the Hobgoblin, Alex, having a Hobgoblin, as Alex just said, Alex is the teacher, so I will leave the math to him. He can maybe
teach math, bro.
Yeah, whatever. -8. Okay, so -8 to 6. That, in theory, bro, you're getting yourself a 14 power card, a 214. Now, it's going to be hard to always have that work out, but not really, too. I mean, I feel like this with Selene on 1 even is awesome. Like, this, and you're getting the activate card. Obviously, these cards aren't always one you want to discard, so, like, this is the first time you want to discard something awkward like this. This is a home run hit. I think this is a very cool card. You said your line. Can I say mine?
Yes, go.
Okay. So you have Khonshu. I don't know how you're going to get this all to work, but you have Khonshu, right? You've got turn 2. You play down the first Ghost Rider. Who does he get rid of, Alex? He gets rid of, wait for it, Gore the God Butcher, -1. Okay, so he goes up to a 2/7. You're like, all right, 2/7. Gore's gone. And then you have Khonshu. You have Khonshu in play. And Khonshu brings back Gore. You name it. I don't care. A 5, a 7, a 12. You tell me a 2/7, a Khonshu plus this guy is not just going to wreck shop.
It is. That's actually a nice line. I hadn't thought about Gore. Gore would be pretty solid because they're like pretty much all on reveals too, right? Pretty nice, cool. Cozy. And then all your discard synergistic cards are going to be on reveals. There's a ton of on reveals in those decks. Damn, Cozy's cooking. Cozy's cooking. You know what's going to be so sad though? When Glenn's listening to this, he's thinking, clowns. I bet you they thought of all this, and then when you discard a negative card, it actually takes away power.
They better not.
I bet you.
They better.
They'll like rewrite the calculus books to make sure that we're sad.
I think we're gonna have a Mr. Negative Gore Agamotto deck with first Ghost Rider. So you get all these cards. You can Jane Foster all the spells to your hand, and then you can also bring some of them back with Khonshu. I don't know. There's gonna be some wild. It seems like a freaking cool month.
It looks like to me the Reddit posts are gonna write themselves when people say like second inner can't do math. Because getting rid of Ghost Rider is going to turn getting rid of Hobgoblin is going to turn Ghost Rider into a -2.
Probably. Now we're going to move on and we're going to go into the what if season. Again, these are a bit more in concept, but they are out there. And I would say 60% of the cards that get made up end up making it, with 40% getting some type of a cut, a change, and altogether ability shifted. So we might see that. Now the season, the season pass card that will be coming out is going to be Captain Carter. Now, if you guys don't know, and I might be wrong here, what if a lot of people know from Disney Plus? There's been now, I think, 3 seasons on it. That's where a lot of people were introduced to it. It was a running comic series. I remember my cousin had it, and there's some that were Like, what if is cool because there's so many what if scenarios, but Captain Carter has been long in the what if thing. This is not just from the show, even though maybe the art might be. I think I could be wrong though.
Yeah, so like Captain Carter is like obviously a super iconic person from What If, and it's actually she's one of the first episodes, right? And it's funny because like I've actually been starting to dive into What If. I've been diving into like the anime Spider-Man that just recently came out. I'm trying to catch up, Cozy, and I got to tell you, what I like about Captain Carter is because like Agent Carter herself was an extremely impactful, fascinating character from the MCU, especially in the early days of the MCU. Like, I loved Agent Carter as Cap, but that's a whole other conversation. Seeing this type of like use of like What If to create new cards, first of all, makes me excited for Snap because like what this represents is their opportunity to like people say, well, you're going to run out of characters eventually. You can only go to the well for so long. Well, now the What If ability to like bring in these What If style cards into Snap, that really increases the pool of cards that are possible, which is kind of interesting, right? But yeah, with Captain Carter, I think one of the most notable things is obviously it's ongoing, which is your other cards in the back row gain this card's power. We haven't seen that much fixation on the positioning of cards before. And so we're talking about a new mechanic functionally in Marvel Snap, which I think is pretty fascinating because usually you don't care where cards are positioned unless you're playing like Annihilus or Move, where the actual positioning of the cards will determine where they move or if they flip, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I find this to be super fascinating. I'm really excited for it.
Well, a good point. I think with Rocket and Groot coming out, they did the Rivals crossover, so they had to kind of commit to some of those. I agree. I think it's fine to get different versions of cards, but What If makes it a lot cooler, I think, and you can really think outside the box because there's some extremely cool concepts. I think there's some weird concepts, but I think that's the whole point of it, right? Captain Carter, though, for those that don't know and listening, is a 4-cost 2-power card at the time. Ongoing, your other cards in the back row here gain this card's power. Now, obviously, in Snap, this is what we would assume. Back row is the row closest to your cards, and then the front row is the ones closest to the locations. That's gonna be kind of how it works. And I think this is a pretty cool design. Obviously, just at first you read it and you're like, okay, well, so it's like a 4/6, right? And then you also have to have Captain Carter in the front. But obviously, with it being ongoing, we have a lot of ways that you can manipulate that and make it work a lot better. What do you think of Captain Carter as a card?
I think it's interesting. Obviously, it's early, so I'm still working on lines. But like right off the top, Captain America turn 3, Captain Carter turn 4, Iron Man turn 5. Captain America is going to buff both Captain Carter and Iron Man. Captain Carter is going to buff Iron Man again, and so then you get an absolutely insane lane with 3 cards.
Yeah.
And then in that lane, maybe you throw down something like like Omega Red. I don't know. This is pure code, but you could do something with it. But that line makes a lot of sense, right? Cap America, Captain Carter, Iron Man. One location, boom, 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 and they're all synergizing together. I think it's pretty cool.
I like the idea of like doing Captain Carter, Mystique, Onslaught. Like, I don't know, but like Captain Carter, Mystique, Moonstone, Onslaught, whatever, and then you can even live in Tribunal. There's so much power there. But really, just honestly, with just Mystique and Captain Carter, that's like, man, you're pumping up that back line to win, right? Like that back line's looking really good, and then you can maybe Omega Red that. So then it's like, okay, that thing's not moving. Got a Spectrum you can mess around with. I don't know. I think it's just cool. Anytime we get an ongoing card, we know how good Spectrum is and how good Onslaught is. And all the cards fit in those molds, right?
Yeah.
And Mystique. Okay, so those are the 3 cards. And now Moonstone, actually. Let me preface that. Anything under 3 in Moonstone. So we have cards now that can all be manipulated. And really, they go in those decks. Some can stand alone, but most of them are going to be kind of placed in those decks. And I think that's what represents a good ongoing card. Can it stand alone, and how is it going to perform in that style of deck?
And I'm assuming, and I might be wrong, but I am assuming that Sam Wilson's shield will not buff her. That's one thing that's worth assuming. However, if the shield does buff Captain Carter, because she is some form of a Cap, right? Like, I don't know. She's not Captain America. Definitely more of a Captain Britain. But she's got a shield, damn it. Look at that shield. It's just got a bit of a different flag on it, Cozy. It's just got a bit of a different flag. She talks a little different, right? She got a little bit of an accent there, but there is a world where Glenn might be thinking, she's a Cap, and maybe she gets buffed by that shield, which would be a very natural synergy.
They need to either get the word Captain America or they need to, on the shield here, they need to be able to put Captain America, or to not make it as confusing. I think people just need to see that because it is Cap. You're right. I don't think it is going to work personally, but it would be cool because it it works, right? Like, even though it's not, yeah, America, it's Britain, but the shield would work, right? After all. But yeah, so definitely I think she is interesting card. Not near as good as Agamotto in my mind, but I do think that she's going to have some really cool play lines. Really just going to work all together, you know, in that build. Well, in the spotlight with Captain Carter, we've got Goliath coming. Goliath is a 2/1 Alex, and this to me, he kind of has a, I don't know about you, he gives off a little Blue Marvel feel, right? He's got also a little Blue Marvel kind of ability. Ongoing +1 power for each other ongoing that you have in play. And as we just said with Captain Carter, it's all about how does this work in Spectrum? How does this work in Onslaught? This is just right away the perfect Spectrum card.
Oh yeah, buddy, this is amazing. This is a great card. First of all, I'm shocked that this text didn't exist already. Like, it seemed like such an obvious text line that like just didn't exist. But also, this card's wild. It's a 2/1, and as you play ongoing cards, it just gets more power. Are you kidding me? Like, just even with Sam Wilson by itself, this is a 2/3, boom, right? Like, it's just crazy how good this card is. Not only that, it's good on later turns, right? Because obviously it's an ongoing card, so it'll benefit from existing ongoing cards. Dude, this card's wild. I think this is like a 4 or 5 star card. Like, I really like this card. I think it's going to be very powerful. Comes out the way it is.
It reminds me of Speed, but even better. Like, Speed was like, did nothing fancy, but like got good stat line. And like Goliath does nothing fancy, good stat line. And on top of that, he's also going to be just played alongside all of it. Like, this is, we're finally getting, I believe I saw something in the data mines about a move thing, finally getting this too. We're finally getting what we said forever ago, a Morbius for all the archetypes, right? Like, that is what this kind of feels like in Goliath. Very solid week, and with Captain Carter, even better. Cool stuff coming for ongoing with Goliath. Now we move on. Goliath is the first week. Second week, I'm gonna allow you to introduce this card, Alex. I believe. I want to know. Do you know where this is? Where she's from?
So I was told this is from What If, and I have no idea who this is. I don't even know how to say the name. Is it Kahori? I'm assuming it's Kahori, the reshaper of worlds.
The double H throws me off. No, I think it is Kahori. And it's she's a 4/6, right? So 4/6, Alex, you're like, all right, we've seen this stat line before. What does Kahori do? On reveal, for each card in your hand, give a friendly card +1 power.
Awesome.
We're getting some cool. They're just trying to get Devil Dinosaur to get going, I feel like. They're just trying to get that card back.
They're like, hey, White Queen, you think you're hot? Take a look at Kahori, you stupid clown. Like, tell me right now the White Queen is not feeling like a complete piece of trash. Like, this card is so much better. It's crazy. This is actually a very legit card. Like, buddy, Coulson into this, easy.
This is a card that didn't need to exist, and they could have just given this a White Queen. I think that would have been a much better thing to happen. Yeah, I know they don't get money from it, because this is a very, very strong card. I mean, it's going to almost always be a 4/10 value, but then also I think the best part about it is it just kind of fits anywhere. It fits into any deck, really. I mean, the way that you play it out.
I just don't understand what she's wearing. Like, I don't want to get into this, but she has like this nice, like, you know, traditional dress. Is she wearing like some sort of weird leather boot? Like, what is that? Like, I don't know who dressed her, but this is inappropriate.
Yeah, and it seems like she'd be cold. I think it's cold back there. I can't tell. All the blue
it looks cold. We got to watch this episode. Before all this What If, I got to actually watch What If. We should watch What If.
I don't know why I don't know this one. I feel like I've seen them all, but it's a long time since I've seen the first one, or at least the first series. Anyway, +1 though to all of it. There's a lot of cool lines that you can do with this. There's a lot of ways you can abuse this. There's stuff you can do with Wong or whatever. Like, there's just cool things I think you could do. This is going to be a strong card. Like, yeah, hands down, a very good card, especially if it stays. Again, it's in concept, so we'll see. But guys, if you think that card's strong, this is probably the one I'm most excited for, just in theory, because it seems like it's I don't know, a whiles away until it actually gets implemented in the game. Infinity Ultron. You heard that right. 5/6. It's a 5-cost 6-power card. On reveal, add 2 Ultron Infinity Stones to your hand. And I was so giddy to hear that we can get another card with Infinity Stones. And this one's a doozy, Alex. First of all, they go to your hand, right? He's not going to start in your deck. So you've got a lot of things kind of, or he's not going to start in your hand. So you got a lot of things you got to work through, right? But we're going to go through all the stones, man. But in concept, what do you think of just this guy before we get into those?
I think it's cool. And my first read of those stones, like Danny Stones, are super good. And I think that the power is mitigated by the fact that you only get 2 and you don't know which 2 you're going to get. But yeah, they're good. Infinity Ultron's good. I can see this card being made weaker because I think it's going to slap. And I think this is going to be a real banger.
So what these stones do, we're just going to read them all. I'm not going to say which one's a power stone, whatever. I'm just going to go through what we've got here. So one stone is a 3/2 ongoing. Your on-reveal abilities here happen twice. You get a 3/2 Wong, right? You get a Wong at 3 costs. Obviously very good, but we'll get into that a bit more later. 3/2 on-reveal, double Infinity Ultron's power. Okay, you've got that going. 3/3 on-reveal for each full location you have. A friendly card there gets +2 power. And then a 3/4 on reveal, move the lowest power enemy card here to Infinity Ultron's location. 3/1 on reveal, add a drone here and set its power to Infinity Ultron's. And then 3/1 on reveal, put a card here from your hand, to this location. There's so many to talk about, but I mean, dude, all of these feel like they combo with each other, and depending on which ones you get, you can get some nutty stuff happening.
Yeah, you could definitely pop off on a couple of them, and there's a couple that seem a little weaker than the others, like the one that gives +2 if locations are full and stuff. That sounds like a placeholder, unless like I'm inebriated and I don't see the power there. But it seems like not great compared to some of the other ones. But what I like about Infinity Ultron is the fact that it's a 5. I really like that it's a 5 because it creates a situation where you play this 5/6 down, you get the stones to your hand, and your opponent sweats, thinking like, is Infinity Ultron gonna all of a sudden like burst in power? Is because you could also hit it with an Okoye or something, and if you get the stone that kind of like increases its power or whatever, like they can't really rely on what you've done. Like it's the ultimate head game of what Infinity Ultron's doing, and I like that because of the Mind Stone element of who Ultron is. I don't know, I love the flavor of this card. I think it's really well designed,
and I think they're all from the on reveal, the mini Wong being there available. I think that is the snapper, right? So you get that one because all these are on reveal at the moment, and so all of these, you know, you don't think it's that good, but even giving a friendly card +2 for full locations, you put that on top of the other one that does it twice, and all of a sudden you have some crazy stuff. So doubling Infinity Ultron's power, getting that twice is crazy. Putting cards down from your hand there twice is stupid crazy. Like there's a bunch of stuff you can do, and I would say outside of maybe like a combo of 2 of them, like I feel like it has that snap potential that maybe even like Copycat had, in the sense of right away you can almost snap with this guy and you're looking pretty good, because this guy he'll be the comeback king in some areas, really able to do some powerful stuff.
dude. Joaquin Torres, turn 3, turn 4 Wong, turn 5 Infinity Ultron, turn 6 Prophet.
Well, these are 3-cost stones though.
Yeah, but that's why you have turn 6, baby.
What is Joaquin? Isn't Joaquin 1 cost only?
Oh no, my heart! I was thinking about the actual. No, you're right. I was thinking about Thanos' stones being 1-drops. Never mind. My whole plan's ruined. Disaster. Alex in shambles.
No, it's okay. Wong before this, right? You play Wong, and then you get the stones that double up again. Then you get a Mystique for free, pretty much, right? To copy the. No, I see the vision. But no, really, I think that they did this guy right, and I think I'm a fan of these generation. They essentially have to come up with a bunch of cards when they do these, but the Agamotto one, Infinity Ultron, like doing all of these like spell ban, one-time use stuff, like I'm a fan. I think that should be what 5 costs are all about too, because I think that's such a cool, unique spot for it. And this one seems like a winner to me.
Yeah, it seems like a fun way to close out a game. Play this, get some funny stuff happening on turn 6 that your opponent not necessarily can like figure out or anticipate. Yeah, definitely. I like this design a lot.
Now, this was probably one of the best episodes of What If ever, if you haven't seen it. Strange Supreme. Now, Strange Supreme, guys, is a 2-cost 0 power card. Give this +2 power, being strange, whenever it merges. After each turn, merge one of your cards that didn't start in your deck into this. When you read this, you're like, huh? Like, what? Like, what's going on with this card? And listen, I think it's pretty cool. I think as a 2/0, the guy's got some, new combo potential. But I also think, more importantly, that this is a card that is kind of an anti-clog, anti-junk card for starts. I like that. He creates board space off of things like what we just talked about, right? Where it's like, yeah, there's banish cards. Well, now we have things like if you're playing squirrels or you're playing Thanos' stones, like you don't have to worry so much about all that space being taken up.
Yeah, no, he seems perfectly synergistic with something like a debris. You're taking up space on their side, and you're just chomping down on your rocks, getting +2 for each rock. Yeah, 100%, buddy. Moreover, if they throw something like a goblin over, like this might be where like the goblin synergy we were talking about with the first Ghost Rider and the next Ghost Rider, you play Strange Supreme there to munch up the hobgoblin and stuff like that because it didn't start in your deck. I think that it's kind of neat. I think it's a cool design, and it's funny because I had this thought where like as time has gone on, the limits of this board space in Marvel Snap's design has been somewhat of a factor. I've even joked in the past about having like an ARAM type mode, like all random, all mid, which is like from MOBAs, where basically it's just one mid location, which kind of could be funny with unlimited space and stuff like that. But custom game mode, who knows? But I do like the idea of like controlling space, right? And we're starting to see cards like obviously we have Agony, we have Hulkbuster, and Strange Supreme is another flavor of that, which helps to counter the decks that have like those not mill but the junk side, right? Because junk was so problematic for a while, and I think that's why they went so aggressively after someone like a White Widow, who you might even forget existed in the game. White Widow, talk about an absolutely like soul crushing nerf that card took. Something like Strange Supreme feasts on White Widow. So could you perhaps bring this card out and make White Widow its old self again? I don't know, maybe.
What's that location? The rock mine location where all those rocks come out, man. It's like this one's just like, yeah, play me there. Mine? Yeah, I'll just suck all those up, right? Or just even just something like the Hobgoblin. I mean, this looks like it's actually going to be working with the first Ghost Rider against it, like kind of that tech card, because then you can maybe get a rise in some of the Hobgoblin stuff. This looks like it can go against it. This is a little bit off the beaten path here, outside of Strange Supreme. I had something I totally wanted to bring up with Infinity Ultron that I don't know. We just whiffed past it. Bro, Quinjet, there's 2 cards. Quinjet with this, I think, is busted, okay? Because then it makes all those 3 costs 2 costs, and you can play 3 of those stones. But it's like, okay, how does that work? But even more so, I had to bring this up. I think Symbiote Spider-Man is freaking awesome with Infinity Ultron. Because you play Symbiote Spider-Man down, you play Ultron down, then you do the activate, and you get 4 of the stones. And you somehow could get that working with the Quinjet, or just having more options to play with. It was too cool, and I had those on my notes that I was like, man, I got to bring that up. Aren't those interesting lines, yeah?
Very interesting, because I forgot Symbiote Spider-Man existed, so yeah, cool.
And or Magic.
That's a card that exists in Marvel Snap, Cozy.
But
it is a pretty cool synergy. It's a good call.
Hydra Stomper. Next card. Ongoing +1 power for each card you moved this game.
But I'm thinking like Scream Deck type thing. Because if you're moving their cards with Polaris, I still think it counts.
So it being an ongoing at 3/1, this seems like another pretty solid card.
Yeah, like you do Scream 2, Hydra Stomper 3, and then you start doing like shenanigans with Steggy, with Arrow, with Magneto feasts, right? Because now Magneto is buffing this each time it moves a card. So if Magneto pulls 4 cards, Scream only gets 1 proc, Hydra Stomper gets 4, right? So like, yeah, this is a huge Magneto card. I think it's actually pretty neat.
But then Heimdall too, no? Is this
Heimdall as well? Yeah.
Like I feel like this is a card that can scale to really good potential. Maybe this is finally when Redwing can be okay. Probably not, because then what other cards would you play with it? But this is what I was mentioning earlier, the Morbius of these different archetypes. We're finally getting. We've been waiting for a card like this for a while to be getting power as you do what the archetype wants to do.
Yeah, inexpensive scalers. They're super, super valuable. And in this case, I think that Hydra Stomper is legit because, as you mentioned, you could disrupt them via Magneto and move their stuff around and buff it. And you could also consider Heimdall to buff your own side and not worry about them as well. There's so many ways you can activate it.
Now, I was mixing him up with what Dum Dum Duggan does. Ongoing, your cards in the front row get +1 power. This is essentially what I thought the other one was doing. And to me, you got, just a 2/4 baseline. But this is another cheap little card that I think is going to work in the package quite nicely.
No, yeah, honestly, it seems like it's pretty legit. I don't think it has... I think I like Hydra Stomper better. But still, like, I would not mind being able to give Dum Dum a little bit of a run, see if he can do a little bit in the deck in Marvel Snap. I think the design of these cards is actually kind of fascinating, which I like. Like, we're coming from a season which, like, I don't want to talk about, like, negatively on Redwing and stuff, or, like, Thaddeus Ross. But, like, they're just not quite as exciting. These ones feel a little more exciting.
They feel like they definitely synergize better together, too. Almost all these seasons are, like, kind of working in tandem with each other, which I like, especially this season. Taupe has 3/4, Alex. After you play a card here, move it to the middle location. Why would you want that? What do you see with Topaz here as a 3/4?
What do I see with him? I mean, it kind of feels like Grandmaster for move, except when you're able to like immediately proc its effect, right? Like imagine you play just Vulture on him. You play Vulture on him, it throws it to the middle, then you Ghost Spider on turn 4. Like you could Vulture Ghost Spider on turn 4, right? I think it's pretty neat. I don't know. I actually could see this being removed in power. Like I think that like it could be maybe a 3/3 because I do think its synergy with move is pretty high, especially when you consider like you have like the bounce and little movers type stuff where you could like repeatedly reproc on top of this. So yeah, like I believe that like we don't have the text on the screen. I believe this one here you could reproc on, right? It's
Yes,
not
you
limited
can.
to once per game or anything.
Right now you can.
I could see it being abused.
This is what we should have gotten this season with Redwing. This is the Redwing card. I mean, because what I just said, the thing that sucks with Redwing is you're hoping to like, when are you going to play it? What card are you going to use to activate it? What's great about this guy is you play him down and then you always have that activation to move a card. Not like Madam Web, you got to wait, right? This is immediate. So I think this will be a cool piece for move. I think it's going to maybe cause some problems, though, depending on but it's all in the middle location, which is nice, and it can be a problematic location for move. Like back in the day, you would only play Storm in the middle. Remember, it just shuts down move altogether. Listen, bro, we just went through a billion cards in the game. They're all coming out. Which one sticks out to you the most as we close things out?
Starbrand. Starbrand's the one I want.
Yeah, it's just a cool one. It's so simplistically cool. We talk about that all the time, but just like very simplistically cool. I'm definitely going with Agamotto. I think that one's just going to be, that's going to pull me away to play this game a lot more. It just seems like a fun card that there's infinite designs for.
Yeah, Agamotto and the Infinity Ultron are like the coolest, but me personally, it's like I'm just hyped up. Like I really want that 3/10 chunk, man. I want to make some magic happen with Starbrand because I just want to play a deck that I've not played in a long time. I want to play some Sauron, so I'm excited for it.
Well, guys, we had data mines come out this week, a lot of leaked stuff, but also card mastery. We're going to be talking about our raw feelings on that over on Alex's side, what we want to see, and talking to our love letter to the devs, maybe a little bit in it, as well as reviewing Thaddeus Ross and more. You guys have a good one. Have a great one. To the next one. Happy snapping.